Okay, so once again it's time for another triple C, which stands for Casual Camera Conclusion. And I really hope I'm not doing too many of these camera deep dives these days, but on the other hand, I have to say, judging from the comments, you all seem to be very interested in that, and I hope I can help you out. But I definitely have to clarify a few things. First of all, I want to let you know what's gonna happen today. What I want to do is pit two of the hottest phones at the moment against each other. On one side, the Xiaomi Mi9, priced around 450 euros, obviously price will come down with time, against the Samsung Galaxy S10 series, which starts with the S10e at around 750 and goes all the way up to 1250 or even higher. And this video, just to clarify that, is not to find out which camera is the best. I mean, you would expect the way more expensive camera on Samsung side to win, but it's actually more about to see the difference of how close by now a way cheaper phone can get, and especially with the use of the Gcam mod that I've already talked about in that specific video, can get you even closer. I can't do that unfortunately with the Samsung Galaxy S10 series since it's using the Exynos in my version and therefore just doesn't work with it. So we are going to see how close it gets with that, and what I also have to just absolutely make sure, because I've seen people being a little bit confused about that whole thing about the way that I judge pictures by now. Because they said, why do you zoom in? If I just do, for example, pictures in good lighting conditions, they all look the same, it just comes down to low light qualities. Okay, the reason for the zooming is this. If you just look at a picture from its normal size, especially on a phone, they pretty much all look very good. Especially these days, every camera does a way more than good enough job. I said this in the past, but for everyone who puts a lot of emphasis into his photography, he wants to know these little details, and that's why I have to zoom in. Because if I look at it at 100%, a normal size on a phone, you can't see those differences. Therefore, you need to zoom in to see those smaller differences. It's just about that. It's not to zoom up the picture and actually print it that way. It's absolutely not that thing. About low light qualities, it definitely makes a difference, and for some people it's extremely important. But there is where some cameras just completely fall apart. But we'll have to see about that. And what I also want to make sure is, before I'm getting into the pictures and so on, I want to just tell you one thing about the Samsung series straight up. If accurate colors are your thing, this is not your phone, because pretty much all the pictures and videos that I did were completely oversaturated and way too warm. But if that's exactly the picture that you like, if it's just a nice pleasant picture with a lot of details though, that I have to give them, then Samsung is your thing. If you want it more accurate, the Mi9 wins. So that's why I'm not going to talk too much about the colors themselves. But what I want to try to make it as easy to understand as possible, but it will be very detailed and it will take up quite some time. So let's get into that. And what I want to start off first is, for example, here these three pictures. And just so you know what's going on. If you see these three pictures, the first one will always be the Samsung S10, to make that easier, because the latter pictures will change a little bit over time, especially the more tests I did. Because, for example, the second one is usually always the stock cam from Xiaomi, and the third one would have been the Gcam. If anything changes, I'll let you know. So I'd say let's just look at those pictures out of the box, and you can see that here on the first one, the Samsung is noticeably colder. The Xiaomi looks good, and I would actually say that the most realistic part seems to be on the Gcam. But if we now actually zoom in, and that's why I'm zooming in, so you can see those, because especially if you watch this on a phone or maybe on a smaller TV, you won't be able to see this difference, because now from this distance you can't really judge which one is that much sharper. But if we go closer, especially maybe took a look at that font, you can see that all of them aren't that sharp. And what I also want to make sure, the Samsung looks a little bit off because it used a different angle the way that I shot these pictures, so I can't really change that. But if we take a closer look, you can see that I would definitely say, in terms of details out of the box, the Samsung makes a better job, because it is, after all, maintaining a little bit more details, a little bit more sharpness. So that's that. Now let's get into the next pictures. And unless something big happens, I'm just gonna skip a few pictures, not to make this too long. But once again, I would say in this case, we can see Samsung wins versus Xiaomi for sure, and the Gcam pretty much in every situation, unless I maybe got it blurry, just wins over the Xiaomi stock app. But like I said, I'm not going into all the colors, because here, I don't know why, but Samsung decided to go and completely off way. This is pretty much the only picture where the Samsung is noticeably colder. And in that case, the other ones are more realistic. But if we take a closer look at, for example, the Xiaomi cam and then the Google cam, we just generally see a little bit more contrast, a little bit more dynamic range, and just a slightly nicer appearance. It is sometimes over-sharpening for sure, but yep, that's the thing. But let's get into the next picture here, for example. If you look at the Samsung, and if we zoom in now, and that's why I need to zoom in so you can see that, and if it matters for you, then it matters. If you just look at the picture always like this, it does not matter. So let's look at it, and let's see, as you can see here, so much more details on the Samsung S10. I mean, like I said, colors completely off, because the way the Gcam puts it in is actually the most accurate way. This is a little bit kind of lacking of dynamic range, and we also don't quite get the same amount of details like we do on a Gcam. So I would say in this case, details and sharpness go towards Samsung, but overall quality picture and look and so on go to the Mi9. And this is actually the impressive part. You get with the Gcam sometimes an even better picture than on the way more expensive S10. That's the thing that I want to just make clear. Here, for example, all pretty much a similar shot. If we would look a little bit closer, you can maybe see some more details, in this case on the Gcam, than for example on the Samsung. So this is not a 100% accurate test. Sometimes one just gets it a little bit better than the other one. For example, here once again, here Gcam completely failed, it overexposed it quite a lot, where Samsung did a brilliant, nice job, especially in terms of sharpness if we look closer. But once again, we don't have to discuss colors. If you think that looks nicer, I mean, I actually think it does, but if you want accurate, that is not the one for you. And here, for example, the same. So Samsung generally looks more pleasing than reality. But when it comes to details, it also wins even over some other ones. Because just look at this. So much more details we have here than here, because this looks a little bit soft. The Gcam did get a little bit more right, but the colors always, like I said, always in terms of colors, the Gcam will win, then Xiaomi, and then Samsung. But Samsung, like you can see here, I mean, that picture, I think most people would always agree that the Samsung picture in most situations is the one that they would say is the best one, unless they would actually go a little bit closer in. For example, here the same with the wide angle. It's actually only two pictures, I got that wrong, sorry. Let's do this again. And you can see, yeah, Samsung does a way better job here. Not just because the sharpness is better, but yeah, just looks way better. We don't have to get closer into that. Now let's do this here once again. Wide angle versus wide angle. Yep, not that much more to say. Maybe look at this one once again. Here, if we zoom in, you can actually see how much sharper the Samsung is over the Mi9. But if we use the Gcam, then actually we get a lot of those details back again. So, I mean, it really comes down to preference. And I would actually say, for most people who just want a great picture, you don't need an S10 anymore. You can get that with the Mi9. And so many people actually said the Mi8 makes better pictures than the Mi9 does. I don't really know. Then, okay, this is now when we have two pictures. It's, in this case, left the Samsung, right the Xiaomi, but I also have pics later on with the Google Cam. But as you can see, I would definitely say, even though colors are a little bit off once again on the Samsung, this just offers so much more details here. Actually, not that much, but still, but it looks a little bit nicer, contrasty and so on. So, should we do another one? Okay, let's do another one. This one here, yeah, bokeh mode, I would almost say is better on Xiaomi's side, but generally, yeah. Okay, so now let's check a few pictures with the Google Cam, and then you'll see that it, oops, sorry, I marked too many. Then you'll see that Google goes all the way. I mean, they completely over sharpen and over contrast this, because this is not what my skin looks like. It looks way more like this. This is the Samsung on the left, and this is the Gcam. And for some reason, my face looks always weirdly red. So we can skip that. The same thing about the inside. Now, what I want to show is, just to make that clear, the version of Google Cam that I'm using still has the exposure issues. I've heard there are files that configure it, that it works better, but I just don't have the time to play around with that. So, next picture. This is inside, and yeah, same situation, Samsung S10, Xiaomi, and Google. And I mean, it looks good. It looks colder. For example, inside with kind of artificial light, Samsung actually gets colder. But I mean, if you just look at this picture, it's hard to find real differences. For example, you can see the text a little bit better than in these two cases on the Samsung. And I would generally say the Samsung is sharper, it's more detailed. If it's necessarily better, that's up for another discussion. And if we talk about the discussion, let's actually, if I wouldn't have gotten this wrong. Wait, let me just check it. Okay, so What I want to show you now are a few pictures. And now the problem is I have 5 pictures because I can't show you 5. And the issue is that, for example, let's take the first 4. Okay. Now what's happening here is the first one is the Samsung S10. The second one is the Xiaomi. The third one is the Xiaomi here with night mode. And this is the Google Cam. I have a 5th picture with Google's night sight. And whenever I'm going to show that, it will be the 4th because I'm going to just shut off these. And I'm actually, let's just do it like this. I'm not going to show the second picture because the second picture is always the Xiaomi stock cam without night mode. And in these lower light conditions, it pretty much always is worse than everything else, any other solution. But I'm going to show you just so you can see this. Okay, let's go here into this, zoom out. And let me show you now, for example, this is the night mode and this is stock. I mean, this is not real. The camera, and that's why actually the night mode always takes the same amount of time for the Xiaomi Mi9 because it does every time the same. It always just raises the sharpness and boosts the contrast. This is not really improving the picture in any other way. Samsung, yeah, and then Google. Now let's do this, what I wanted to show you. Let's now take the second picture out of the equation and show Google's cam. Let's get into it again, and then you can see that here, if we compare the second one with the first one, I mean these two, this is Google's cam, and it actually got a better picture than Samsung. And with the night mode, okay, I got it blurry, but I have enough pictures so I can show you actually what's really gonna happen. So once again, I'm just gonna ditch the Xiaomi. So this is S10, Xiaomi night mode, Google night mode. And you can obviously see that the Google night mode is by far the brightest one because, as I said, that always makes it look like you shot the picture at a brighter time. But you can see, if you look closer, and I don't want to show this too much but because it would take up too much time, even in low light situations, most often actually Samsung delivers a little bit more sharpness and gets it better. But out of the box, actually Google Cam makes a way better job. I mean, just forget. Yeah, I mean, I pretty much can't stop laughing about what Xiaomi does with the stock app. In low light, it's actually pretty much of a joke. So let's actually ditch that once again and take a look. Once again, Google's night sight does a way better job, but even the normal Google Cam picture already looks better than the Samsung. And the problem is with Samsung, you can't really force the night mode. So in these situations, it never wanted to activate it. Unless they actually allow me to enable that feature by myself, it's pretty much dead in the water and pretty much useless because every other phone allows this to be happen. So I mean, this is the thing about, for example, look at the grass. This, I know the Samsung doesn't look too bad, but this actually looks really good with the Xiaomi on the G Cam with night sight. It gets a little bit overly warm. But I mean, I don't know where Xiaomi thinks they get all those details from it. It looks so wrong. Okay, once again. And I'm not knocking Xiaomi, but their stock cam for night is, yeah. Here I didn't get the zoom right. Once again, the Google Cam actually looks best. So in lower light situations, if you don't even use the night mode, Google Cam wins over Samsung in many situations. If it's a little bit brighter, then it actually fares better. But I mean, it's the same. It gets too warm in night sight sometimes, but even if you look closer, it gets a lot more details into the grass. So yeah. I think that's where I can pretty much already leave it for the pictures. So let's summarize this. If you have good lighting conditions, I think if you don't care about the color accuracy and the natural colors, Samsung wins pretty much every time with a very close second one using the Xiaomi Mi Cam and the G Cam. Pretty much forget the normal cam in those situations. If you talk about lower light, Samsung doesn't actually do that bad of a job, and it's still better what Xiaomi does produce with the night mode or with the normal mode. But once you activate the G Cam, it's already then often better, and if you then enable night mode, it's sometimes even noticeably better. So that's that. Ultra low light, the same thing. And the only thing that I could mention then, for example, selfies, generally more sharpness, more detail also. Autofocus on the Samsung looks better. Wrong colors, absolutely. But here Xiaomi does an actually pretty good job because those pictures look very natural, a good sharpness already. Gcam, like I said, for the front facing is something that I wouldn't use so much because you get this reddish tone, at least in my case, which just doesn't look all that natural, doesn't look all that right, and that's it. So the difference, is it worth it by now? I mean, if you're looking for the last little bit of detail that you can get at the moment, especially in good lighting situations, you have seen, I hope you have seen, that Samsung still has a little bit of a gap between. That's why I will give this one 5 stars, where I gave this one 4.5 stars, based on judging with the stock cam. If I would activate the Gcam and put that into consideration, or if you want to do that, we would have a pretty much of a tie, because then it would be so close that I still think in most situations I would prefer Samsung. But with the Gcam, but that's also not a solution for everyone. Not everyone wants to use it, because someone said if you want to use the app and it doesn't always work better, you are just better off with an S series phone. You have seen it especially in low light situations where you have no night mode activation manually yet. You are a little bit worse. And I have to say that generally the Samsung S10 series doesn't really deliver in low light as, for example, S8 and S9 did. So it actually got worse in these situations. So I'm a little bit sorry about that. Generally front facing, I prefer the S10. Generally in good lighting situations, I prefer it. But it really comes down to your personal preference. But once you go into lower light situations, using the Gcam normally, or even with the night side, it's often better. Not in all situations, but in most. Now, that's that. And what I'm gonna leave you off right now is with a few video samples, because from what I did see in the poll, you don't really care so much about videos. So I'm just gonna attach these, not gonna say anything. You will get that sound out of the way. So for those who don't want to see those clips, what do I have to say? Samsung, besides the colors, once again, is the way better video camera. The stabilization works way better, because sometimes when it shakes, that was because I was using this rig. I was using a handheld and then hold, and I tried to keep it as steady as possible, but that's not always the case. And you definitely see some jitter and some wobbliness on the Xiaomi that you don't see at all on the Samsung, because Samsung has this amazing stabilization 4K 30 and generally a little bit sharper, a little bit better focus of colors. I don't know how many times I already said that. For the front facing, the same. Even though we actually have 4K on the Samsung, the Xiaomi using 1080p isn't really much behind in terms of sharpness or anything like that, which is actually surprising. Sound is once again worse, but you'll hear actually, not just see that. And if you use, and I wouldn't really use the video cam of the Xiaomi, of the Gcam, just yet for selfies. For general videos, I would even prefer it over the normal cam, because it had better stabilization than the stock camera app did. Okay, now I'm done. Watch those videos and then let me know what you think. And once again, keep in mind, both more than good enough. And we don't have to zoom in. This is for people that only with this way can see those details if they matter for them. For me personally, they don't do either, but enough. Yeah, it does. Okay, until next time, and now off to the videos.